This is Polyamory Weekly, tales from the front of responsible non-monogamy from a pansexual, kink-friendly point of view. A warning for our under-18 listeners. This is an adult-oriented podcast about really lascivious things, like communication and honesty in relationships. If you're under 18 and looking for upfront advice and answers to questions about sex, please visit scarletteen.com.
This is Polyamory Weekly, episode 519 for June 1st, 2017. Coming up on today's show, can you be introverted and poly? That's coming up on today's show. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Minx, and sitting in the co-host chair today is Lusty Guy.
Happy to be here once again, and lucky as always to be next to Minx.
It seems like it's been a long time since you've been in the co-host chair.
You know, we say that every time. It seems like when I come back,
Really?
it's been a long time since I've been... Well, I get, I'm doing all the behind-the-scene stuff.
You are doing so much cool stuff. As a matter of fact, our first announcement is about your stuff.
Well, as a matter of fact, it is. I have been asked to write an article for swingtowns.com on fighting fair. And the draft is going to go to them in a week or so, and it should be up in a week or so, and we'll be sure to let you guys know so you can take a look at it and let me know how I got everything wrong.
And we should specify that this is about arguing as individuals within a relationship, not actually physically fighting, which you also teach a class on combat.
That's right.
Techniques.
Well, it could, yes. Yeah, in which case there is no fair.
Kick them in the nuts.
That's right. I have a character whose tagline is, let's see if I have to switch accents, excuse me for a moment. Lord Benjamin Brass says, "Fair fight, that's just another name for poor strategy."
So we'll provide a link when that's up. But very exciting. This week in Poly in the News, Alan from the Poly News blog wrote a fantastic aggregation post. So if you are a newbie to Poly and you want all the best Poly 101 stuff together in one place in terms of Poly in the News, this article is for you. I'll provide a link in the show notes at polyweekly.com, or if you have the app, it'll be right there in the show notes section. But he started off with my Ignite talk, which I gave a week or two ago, May 18th. How long ago was that?
A week or two.
Yeah. It was 5 minutes. So they're kind of like TED Talks, except they're only 5 minutes long instead of 20. And it's 20 slides automatically forwarded every 15 seconds. And I gave one on 8 things your poly friend wants you to know about poly, sort of busting poly myths, with a little Poly 101 thrown in there. And the video went up a couple days later, and I posted it to my website and sent out an email to everybody. If you're on the email list, you received an email saying, hey, here's this Ignite talk. And then Alan apparently used that as a jumping off point to put together this most stupendous Poly 101 aggregated news post ever.
Yeah, I think his thinking was that in the media right now, there is a lot of representations of poly that are not necessarily coming from people with a lot of experience of poly. And so he wanted to put together his list of, these are the people you ought to listen to.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Alan's been around this block a lot of times. And I'm saying this not just because he included Minx in the mix, but that did help. But if Alan says that, it's worth checking out, it's worth checking out.
It's really true. There has been a lot more coverage of polyamory that's been not sensational. It's actually been fairly decent lately. But this post is definitely the place to go if you kind of want the 101. He starts with my Ignite talk and then also mentions Dedeker Winston, whom we had on the show a few weeks ago, wrote an article on bustle, which I love. Is called The First Poly Mistakes You'll Probably Make If You Open Up Your Relationship. Love that title. Wish I'd thought of it. And then apparently Metro UK has an article. And then he pulled there was a Playboy article from 2016, a Glamour article, a Shape article, both from 2016, WikiHow, She Knows, Nylon, The Good Men Project, AskMen.com, and then he goes on to several sites that I've never even heard of. But it's a really good list of like the top dozen or so articles that's been written on Poly 101 over the last like year or two.
And thank you, Alan, for putting it together.
Yes. So there you go. You don't need me anymore. Shut up shop.
Well, I have
Close our doors.
I have other needs for you.
Now, our topic this week was actually from a listener who called in and asked this question from Japan.
Hey, Polyweekly. I'm calling you from Kyoto, Japan. I want to say first, thank you so much for your hardworking hearts and souls in the podcast. It's such a nutritious blend of quirkiness, honesty, and tough love, and I'm just very thankful. I'd like to ask your advice, maybe your comments on something. I'm 35, and my wife and I have been poly for many years now. We have kind of this non-sexual, very friendly friendship relationship, but yeah, we end up actually not having sex because that is just how our relationship has evolved, and actually probably works out better that way. But now that we've been poly for so long and I'm here, I'm looking for people to date, and I end up just being so introverted. And in this culture in Japan, when you do communicate that you are poly, there's very much this sort of this cold shoulder, and I'm positive people would learn my personality. They would find, oh, you're a loyal person, you're a good person, you're a moral person. But I can't even get there. Well, because I'm just too honest about the poly part. And so I end up being in sort of that strange mess of being both lonely and horny at the same time, which is probably a turnoff for pretty much anyone. But, you know, is it even possible to be introverted and poly? I heard your episode 486 and it was heartening, but it's quite discouraging, especially here in Kyoto, where even the best poly websites and date-friendly websites don't even reach. Anyway, I sort of made a mess of this voicemail, but maybe I'll send you an email or something where I can be more articulate. But anyway, thanks for your podcast and your website too. Bye-bye. Hello, Cunning Minx. This is Abel calling from Japan. Again, I called you a few weeks ago and left a detailed, rambling voicemail and then an email about how hard it was for me to find anyone to date here being poly and being introverted. But I'm just so happy to tell you that I've been applying your advice, rigorous honesty, truthfulness. I read your books. I don't know, things have really turned around for me, and I wanted to say thank you. Just listening to your show, just reading your words, it kind of instills this rigorous confidence and courage that has just done wonders for me as and continuing to be an introvert, but still a confident one. And I just wanted to say thank you very much. Anyway, please take care and have a great week. Bye-bye.
So there's our question. Can you be introverted and still be poly? Does that work?
I think there's more than a question there. There's a whole story of personal triumph between those two audio messages.
So it sounds like, courtesy of, I guess, our resources and listening to enough podcasts, he said, hey, I figured it out. You can do that. But I still thought it was a good question because tons of people self-identify as introverts, including tons of poly people. So I think there are a lot of people who would like to know our answer to this question.
Well, I think so, but I also just have to take a moment to say huzzah for that little story of personal triumph. Thank you for sharing credit with, your exposure to Minx and I's stuff, but really all the heavy lifting was you.
Yeah.
And if you're feeling better about your situation right now, you are the author of that. Bravo. So just a little note of applause for a great little personal story. I love the juxtaposition of those two messages.
Wasn't that nice?
It really it made my day. Setting aside the fact that you gave us credit, just hearing the change in your voice was cool.
Yeah, that's very cool. So for others who might have the same question, what should we tell them about being poly and introverted?
Well, now you know me. I'm going to do my whole deconstruct the question thing because I can't just answer it.
Of course not.
Of course not. It sounds like to me what you were actually saying was, can I be introverted and meet people?
Mm-hmm.
Not can I be introverted and poly? Those are two different things. And by the way, the answer to both is yes, for most values of introverted, depending on what you mean by that term. You certainly can be introverted and meet people and be poly. You are, of course, the expert on you, and it could be that your definition of introversion is such that it is very, very, very hard to meet people, because here's the rub. To meet people, meeting people is a little bit of a game of you show me yours and I'll show you mine. That's what it takes to meet people. You expose yourself a little bit and they expose themselves a little bit. And if you aren't willing or able to expose yourself, it's pretty hard to meet people.
And we are talking metaphorically. Please don't flash people on the Kyoto subway. Makes for great porn. Not so much for meeting people.
No, the people you meet then are the police.
Yes.
Right. When
True.
They don't want to meet you. You don't want to meet them. It's a bad scene. Although, in Tokyo, I wouldn't be surprised if you wouldn't meet the police. Everybody just turn and look the other way if a ganjin started flashing people. Whole nother story. I used to do business in Tokyo. Amazing culture. But in any case, so again, to break it apart, meeting people requires a little bit of extroversion in that you have to be able to talk to somebody, metaphorically expose yourself, get some positive feelings from that interaction with that person. Otherwise, why would you want to hang out with them? But there's always a balance, and there's a way to do it that will make an introverted soul happy. So perhaps it's a one-on-one conversation in a quiet space in a coffee shop with a limited number of inputs. Maybe it's a walk through a neighborhood, some way so that you can not be overwhelmed by the social energy that's going on around you. As opposed to meeting someone in a group at a concert or something, right? So yes, you can meet people and be introverted.
Yeah, and I think I also want to give you credit for asking the question and then for doing a little research and finding your own answer to the question using whatever resources were available. And I know we always get some negative feedback when we talk about this particular principle, but I'm going to use it anyway because it sounds like it's exactly what you did, which is that you took care of yourself first so that you could put forth the best you that you could possibly be. When we talk about dating, one of the things we say is you really need to get your shit in order first, right? You need to
be as good a you as you can be.
And the way that's commonly put is no one else will love you until you love yourself first. And a lot of people have issues with that idea, which is why I'm trying to sort of word it another way, is that you found a way to be courageous. You found a way to get the confidence that you needed so that you wouldn't feel or sound lonely and desperate. And that made it apparently much easier for you.
Well, in any case, you're feeling better. And that's the important part. I was funny because I was listening to you and I was like, we get pushback on that idea. And then when you got to the loving yourself first, I was like, oh yeah, I did a blog post on that and I'm standing by it. From my concept of love, which is treating somebody well when it's hard, yeah, you do have to be able to treat yourself well when it's hard. I think that's true. But in any case, go read the blog post and we can argue about it more there. The next part of the question is, can you be poly and an introvert? And the answer is the same. Yes. Yes, you can be poly and introverted, as a matter of fact. Now, as we say all the time, poly is a custom job. So your introversion will inform your custom job of polyamory, and that is as it should be. The question is not what is true about polyamory. The question is what is true about you.
I don't think I have much more to add to that.
I love it when I finish her like that.
Our first bit of feedback this week is from Alex, who wrote about episode 513. At the end of the episode, you were saying that when entering your current relationship with Lusty Guy, you wanted to feel like your being there was also doing something to improve the relationship between Lusty Guy and L. This idea really resonated with me, but also sparked a couple questions. In my case, my partner and I are new to poly, and she's closer to being mono and somewhat suspicious of the whole thing. One of her biggest worries is that our relationship won't be as good because she feels like she'd get less attention, be worrying about the other partner replacing her, etc. Valid fear.
A lot of
I'd
people
say.
do.
Yeah. So my question is, maybe to Lusty Guy, what are some ways that you feel the Lusty Guy L relationship has improved as a result of yourself and Minx getting closer to each other? I'm hoping I might glean some insight into qualities to look for in a partner that would similarly only add to my existing relationship, and for ways my current partner and I could love and bond with them in return.
You know, it's funny. When I first
I'm
saw...
just going to sit back, have a cocktail. I'm making you do all the work on this episode.
Gotta earn my it's been a while, right? When I first read that, I actually read it as asking Elle benefits she had found from the relationship between Minx and I. So that's what I'm prepared to answer. But it includes a little bit of what I have found. But we'll start with Elle. Elle, first of all, the one that really that I didn't predict. It was funny. I made a list before, and then I went and talked to Elle, and this is the one that I didn't predict. Elle said one of the benefits of my relationship with Minx is that Elle got to meet Minx and have a friendship with Minx when she otherwise would not have. And that friendship...
Really? She said that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Isn't that cool?
That's very cool. Oh, thanks, Elle.
And that friendship with Minx was valuable in and of itself. That one I didn't anticipate, which is kind of neat. The rest I did. Because of the presence of Minx in my life, Elle gets a cleaner house.
I'm a tad anal.
That's right.
About cleaning and about not just clean, like, spit and polish, but clutter and furniture arrangement. And, the room has to be like the right colors and the pillows have to be placed the right way. I'm just a tad anal about that. But apparently she likes it, which is good.
Well, and the other cool thing about that is that it's not only cleaner, it's prettier. And it has been... a revelatory experience for me to learn that makes a difference. And it has also been really nice for Elle to have somebody else be the driving force for improving the space around. And it's been our practicing for you moving in. So that's been something that's worked out really well. Foreign vacations, right? We have been to Belize and Costa Rica because Minx said, hey, vacations have to be outside the U.S. And so Elle went outside the U.S., which she otherwise wouldn't have.
And once I discovered that she said she would not have anything, she had not had anything that I would consider a vacation, as in you're not visiting relatives.
A foreign land.
And you're actually flying somewhere.
Well, she did.
That is foreign.
That is foreign. There you go.
That is foreign.
Weekends in San Diego didn't count.
Yes, exactly. What I would call like a real full-blown vacation, not just a weekend in, a fairly, relatively close state. Since her kid was born, who has now moved out and is 20 at this point.
Going to be 21 soon.
Yeah. I was horrified. And I'm like, we got to get this girl on vacation. That's just wrong. She works so hard for everybody else all the time. Like, she's the nurturer and the mom, and she always puts other people first. And I'm like, I was horrified. So I drug her along on vacation. It was hard though. It's if you're the one who takes care of everybody else, it's really hard to put yourself first and just be that decadent.
It is. She also listed, not because it's kind of related to the vacation one of our nicknames for Minx is that she's the cruise director. So Minx gets us out of the house when we would probably otherwise sit around and play video games or watch Netflix or read a book or do something much less active. Minx is like, oh, let's go hike Poo Poo Point. That's a real name. That is a real name.
Look it up.
Yep, look it up.
It's a mountain in Seattle.
It's true. Or let's go to the park, or let's go for a drive, or let's go to the show. Let's go
to the Ren Fair.
The Ren Fair.
Seattle Pacific Center has that Terracotta Warriors exhibit I still want to go to.
For example, right? And because of Minx's presence in our lives, we have done many more cultural and entertaining events than we otherwise would have over this last time. What's 7 years now? 6 years?
Six last month.
6 years. 6 last month. That's right.
This month. It's still May.
God. Oh, God, how can it still be May? It's been a long May. And then the other thing that was on the list was that, in essence, you could call it that L has backup.
Mm.
For example, a family emergency called her away over my birthday this last year. And, that's okay, right? Like, it totally is fine with me. But to be gone for my birthday is hard for Elle. And knowing that she could tell, which she did, by the way, could tell Minx, on you, girl. Show him birthday time.
She passed me the torch.
Really meant that she could go and do what she had to do with a more or a less distracted focus. And her ability to, if you will, fob me off on Minx, to put it in a joking way, or to know that Minx will love and take care of me when she can't, is a great value to Elle that she gets from my relationship with Minx. So that's from her perspective. Now, from me, I am a better me in all kinds of ways because of my relationship with Minx. I have more energy. I'm more inspired to do things. I've learned all kinds of things about myself, like the value of having an attractive space around me. I grew up, literally with engine blocks in the bathtub. And so I had to learn to have all of that have no effect on me. And now I've learned, because of Minx, that, wow, a pretty well-organized space inspires me to be, well, if not pretty well organized anyway. Those are the ways in which the relationship between Minx and I have given positive effects to both me and to Elle.
Oh, this is just like the Love Minx episode. I love this.
They all are.
Now, I want to point out that you had asked, your original question, Alex, was asking, how can I use this information to vet partners? And you can probably tell from the answers that Lusty Guy gave is that you really can't. It's not like you can say, oh, I want somebody who's going to clean and redecorate my house for me, so let me go find somebody super anal or who spends all Saturday morning on Pinterest like Minx. It's not really something you can put on a qualifying checklist. And of course, I believe that nobody should have a qualifying checklist and you should simply be open to the possibilities. But it is something that I think can be helpful in the sense that you can look for ways to give positive reinforcement to somebody who's entering into your relationship.
Well,
right?
I will say this. Minx is absolutely right. You cannot sit down with a checklist and say, hey, if I have to go, will you take care of my partner or something like that? What you can do is look for somebody who expresses a value in making the relationships around them better. You can look for somebody who says, it's important to me that I help make you a better you and thus make all of your relationships better. That my contribution to your life is having a positive effect on your life all around.
And that's something that if you are doing a solo poly and you're entering an existing relationship, I highly recommend it. So Alex's partner is not unusual in being concerned that she might get less attention or might be replaced. That's a very common fear, even in a partner who is good, game, and willing to be poly herself. And it sounds like his wife is actually self-identifying more as monogamous. So this is something that's going to be hard for her to begin with. And that's not unusual in any one of a number of partners. But I think everybody should go into a relationship. If there is an existing relationship, I think you should kind of always go in saying, how can I make this person a better person? Or how can I help make their relationship better? I think we should always have that perspective. First of all, because it's very helpful in taking away some of your own fears and concerns. When you're solo poly going into an existing, couple, because it's very often a couple, then there is very often the concern like, where am I going to fit in? How are the rules going to be? Are they going to treat me well? Because a lot of couples, frankly, treat their first few poly partners pretty shittily. And going in with a more positive thought of, how can I help improve their relationship? How can I get what I want while helping to improve their relationship is a way more positive thought than sitting around with that fear of how are they going to treat me? Are they going to dump me when the wife gets jealous? That kind of thing. I just think it's a more positive attitude and much more helpful going into any relationship, regardless of your current relationship status.
Well, we say all the time that the goal of a relationship is to help make everybody better versions of themselves. And so, by saying you want to make things better, all you're doing is saying you want to enable the goal of a relationship. Perfect.
It's time for your Happy Poly Moment of the Week, brought to you by Fubbly Polyamorists everywhere.
This week's Happy Poly Moment is from Polly Pocket, who said, first-time writer, long-time listener of the show, and just become a playmate. Yay, thank you.
Very much.
A 26-year-old queer female, pronouns she, her, hers. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So I don't have to do like verbal judo to avoid using a pronoun that might be wrong.
I just assume they if I don't hear otherwise anymore.
Have been with my partner, G, a 26-year-old bisexual female, pronouns she, her, hers, for 2 years, and we're moving in together.
Huzzah!
Yay! I'm so excited to be starting this new chapter of our relationship. I want to shout it from the rooftops. We both have other partners and have had good conversations with them about their feelings and the logistics of G and I moving in together. We've discussed with each other how our relationship could change by living together and any concerns that we had. We've also talked about what we wanted this to look like logistically. We both agree that we want our own rooms so that we can have our own space when necessary, and we don't have to kick each other out of our own home if other partners are over. I feel like we've covered all the bases, and I'm very proud of how we've been able to effectively communicate with each other and our other partners about the move. My partner C, whom I have been with for a year and a half, has been especially supportive and has a great metamor relationship with G. I just couldn't ask for a better poly family. I even told my parents, and it wasn't terrible. They don't really understand our polyamory, but we've been talking about it more, and they will meet G in a month. I could not have imagined such a rich life full of love 3 years ago. Poly has truly revolutionized my life. And she adds a PS saying, so glad that Polyweekly exists, and thank you. And then a PPS saying, finding poly-friendly housing is harder than one would think. The master bedroom/bathroom combo isn't very friendly to a house that's trying not to be couple-centric. We really looked out and found a place where each room had its own bathroom. Amazing. Know any resources for poly-friendly housing? And my answer to that is no. As I pointed out in my Ignite talk, monogamy pervades every aspect of our culture, and you don't realize it until you do something different. With everything from vacations that are romantic, are always for two and only two people, to the fucking master bedroom design in a house where one room is bigger and has its own bathroom usually, and all the other rooms are smaller, you don't realize how everything in our society is set up for monogamy and only monogamy until you try to do something different. So sadly, no, I don't have any resources for poly-friendly housing. Although I have heard some people that said they gave the master bedroom to the kids, the bigger room. So it was the kids' room, and it was big enough that they also put in a play space, and then all the adults were in the smaller room. So it would be a little bit more fair and equal.
Actually, that solution came up years ago when L and I were living with two of our dear friends. You met them, R&B. Mm-hmm. And we had a house that we were renting that had this gorgeous wood-paneled master upstairs with a bathroom and then just some bedrooms downstairs. And when we were looking at the house, R and I were like, this place is great, but how are we going to decide who gets the upstairs suite? And when we looked at each other and went, oh, well, neither of us will. We'll all stay downstairs, and that upstairs will be the rec room. Huzzah, there we went, and that was the solution that worked for us as well. To get to the question about poly-friendly housing, don't look for poly-friendly housing. Look for duplexes, triplexes, small apartment buildings, pieces of land where you can build tiny houses, things like that. It's not going to be expressed as poly-friendly, but you can find pieces of architecture that were designed for other purposes, but then turn out to be very poly-friendly. A duplex with a hole in the wall, bang.
That being said, I am looking into doing an episode on intentional communities where a group of people, choose to live together in various different configurations. And there are a lot of different options for that. It's much a bigger commitment. You need to get a larger group of people. It's not as easy to just go out and rent something, but it comes up frequently. So we'll be talking about that fairly soon. And now that I've actually checked some of my email, huzzah, we got tons of donations.
Imagine that.
Check it. I know, it's crazy. So thank you to anonymous new playmate who asked to remain anonymous. We'd also like to welcome Kerstin and JA for becoming new polyweekly playmates. And that last one, JA also gave a separate one-time 3-digit donation as well.
Huzzah!
So getting all the cool poly stuff. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you all very much.
And those donations do help to keep this resource free for everybody, both inside and outside the poly community, including journalists. Seriously, folks, call me. Call me for your next article. If you ever have questions, comments, or feedback, 802-505-POLY, like our caller did this week, or email polyweekly@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/polyweekly. We're also on Twitter @polyweekly and @cunningminx, and pretty much everywhere else as Cunning Minx. It's cunning, sometimes .minx or cunning_minx, but it's always there. And Polyweekly on every other social platform.
And if you are a journalist or have a business concern, email LustyGuy@polyweekly.com and you'll get a response in less than 6 months.
6 months. And that's, of course, if you also want to book us to speak, or in some of these other instances, if you have a question just for Lusty Guy specifically. With that, I think it's time for dinner, so let's wrap it up and say thanks for listening. And remember, it's not all about the sex.